So this is the last week of study for the Lent season. If you didn't grow up in a liturgical church like I did not, and it is a study of the last days of Jesus' life that we celebrate. So just as we think about the sacrifices, we think about expectations and what people imagined was coming. Remember, people thought that Jesus was going to be the Messiah, the King of Israel that was going to release people from bondage of that the Roman Empire had put on them, that he was going to release the kingdom of Israel into its greatness again. So when we talk about shattered expectations, can you imagine what happened when Jesus is taken to the cross and killed, and when their whole world falls apart? That's what this series is about. And we're reaching back into the wisest, my dad calls him the wisest, dumbest man to ever live, Solomon. I mean, he had such wisdom and insight, was a great king, the height of Jewish leaders and Israelites to lead. It was a world power at that time. But at the same time, the dude had 300 wives and 900 porcupines that he kept. And they worshiped other gods, which led him away from God. And we're going to talk about those expectations. But maybe you've had shattered expectations. Maybe you had a marriage that didn't work out, or maybe you've dealt with a sickness, or you are not spending your retirement years the way that you thought that you would. Maybe your spouse has passed, and you didn't anticipate that, and you wondered, God, what's going on? Maybe you have kids that are sick. I can't tell you the number of folks in here who have lost children. And to me, that has to be one of the most unbelievable, painful thing in this world. That's not the way that God intended the world to be. So what happens when we encounter expectations that are shattered against the reefs of life and the storms in life? What happens when our expectations of what should be are not? That's why we reach back 900 years into the past. Actually, it's been 2,900 years, it's 900 BC, which is when Solomon reigned, into his life to see what he has to say. Remember, he writes the Proverbs as a younger man. What he does with the Proverbs is he assembles a bunch of wise sayings. He thinks in wisdom, and he writes in wisdom. And then he makes a book about, hey, how to live in a wise way, how to live in an intelligent way. This is what you need to be successful at life. It was one of the best-selling how-to books of the ancient world, although I don't know that he sold it, and Books A Million wasn't around at the time. But it's been one of, when Michael Franzese talks about becoming a Christ follower in prison, you remember he was a mafia captain from the Colombo crime family. He became a Christ follower in solitary, living in a 6x8 cell. A guard pushed a Bible through the slats, and he was one of the, according to not Fortune magazine. I think that's a military magazine. Maybe it's not. Is Fortune magazine a different magazine? Okay, Fortune. So Gary was also in special forces like me. Becky was in the financial world. So Fortune 500, I think, had a list of the top 50 most powerful mob bosses of the 1980s. And Michael Franzese is number 14, 3 behind John Gotti. And he comes to Christ in prison. And the first book that he begins to read is Proverbs chapter 17, verse 7. And that led him on a faith journey. Proverbs is a great book about how to live and how to do business and how to treat family members and how to live a righteous life. Then as he gets a little bit older, one of the wives that he apparently falls deeply, madly in love with, which was a song in the 1990s. Not familiar? Okay, deeply, madly. I don't know. I think it was in my wedding, but I can't remember. So anyway, he writes this passionate love letter to the Shulamite woman. We don't know her name. We know that she comes into his house. We know that he drinks deeply of the love that he, probably lust that he has for this woman. They're married. We see them fight multiple times throughout the book. We see them be intimate at least 3 times in the book. We see how there is conflict and communication. There's so much practical wisdom in the Song of Solomon about marriage and relationships and how to navigate relationships of life. But at the end of his life, after he's lived a long time and he's nearing the end, he sits down to pen this book about what he's learned in life. Now, I was listening to one of my favorite preachers. His name is, can't remember. Come on, he just made the movie Jesus Revolution. Greg Laurie, thank you. And Greg Laurie was talking about, in a message, I listen to him every day, about what he would tell young Greg if he had a chance to speak to Greg this moment. You can come on up, babe, whenever you're ready. No pressure. I told him you're showing up at 6:55, so you're early. But if you had an opportunity to tell a young version of yourself 3 things, I'm going to actually give you 60 seconds to think about this. What would you tell your young self? Okay, ready? Let's have uncomfortable silence while you think. What's that? Only 3, yeah. It really would be a good list because most of you have children, grandchildren. If all of us have friends, right, that you could leave this wisdom to. Does anybody want to share one of the things that they would tell a younger self? Okay, be more financially wise. Be more diligent in saving money. Okay, good. Be a better mother. I bet Jason would argue with that, but take care of your body. Yeah, my grandpa Hargrave used to say, everything you put into your body before the age of 20 affects you after the age of 20. And he gave me a newspaper article from the 1960s to solidify that. What else? One of the best non-Christian speeches I've ever heard is...
Wear sunscreen.
Wear sunscreen. It was an article written by a Chicago Tribune person, writer, columnist. Thank you. Thank you for your help, everybody. She said, I've never been asked to speak at a high school graduation, but if I were, this is what I would say. And they eventually made it into a song in like 1997 called Wear Sunscreen. Go home and listen to it. It's fantastic. One of the great lines is, he says, she basically says, you know, all of the advice I could give you, maybe opinion, blah, 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 blah. She said, but if there's one scientific fact I could tell you to help you in your life, it would be wear sunscreen. She often says, do not look at beauty magazines. They will make you only feel fat. And she says, you have no idea how beautiful you are right now. You won't know until years later when you look back at pictures of yourself to think, wow, I was really good looking. So I've told Erica that several times about myself, and she disagrees. Yep, I turned her mic off on purpose.
One of them, she also said, is sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind, but the race is long, and eventually you realize the race was only ever against yourself.
Yeah, it is a fantastic speech. I'm thinking about using it sometime and passing it off as my own. So, I don't know. Erica she's going to Google it for you. But the title of the speech is Wear Sunscreen. Listen to the song. I think Tal Bachman. Does anybody know who that is? I think he was a commentator or something, but he's the one who narrates it. Wear sunscreen. Whereas the rest of my meandering advice is blah, 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 blah. But my scientific. Anyway, we digress. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. We are going to read and finish up this book on Ecclesiastes. It was written in the 1990s by Mary Schmich, S-C-H-M-I-C-H. Wear sunscreen. Okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 11, starting in verse 1. Send your grain across the seas, and in time profits will flow back to you. That sounds almost like some business sense. But divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risk might lie ahead. When clouds are heavy, the rains come down. Whether a tree falls north or south, it stays where it falls. Farmers who wait for perfect weather never plant. If they watch every cloud, they never harvest. Just as you cannot understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's womb, so you cannot understand the activity of God who does all things. Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon, for you don't know if profit will come from one activity or another, or maybe both. When my grandpa was 92 years old, my grandpa Krill, he was a farmer. My aunt asked him, "What's one thing that you regret in life?" He said, "I don't really regret many things." He said, "But if there's one thing I wish I would have done is take more risks." Life can be scary, right? Choices can be scary. But it was interesting that that's what he said, is I wish I would have taken more risks in life. Anything to add to that, compadre?
I'm kind of thinking about what Tony said earlier. Okay, when you say be a better mom, you gotta need checkpoints on that list for the rest of us.
You're Italian, aren't you? Rick, why are you laughing?
He's just affirming her. Wisdom.
Yeah, Tony, I think that's something all of us. Yes, dear. Yeah, I've learned that already. It takes a while for you to learn, fellas, that you don't argue with your wife because it's a losing battle. Right. Okay. Actually, there is some wisdom that I heard from a study on the Song of Solomon from Tommy Nelson. And he said, guys, never win a fight with your wife. And what he meant was not don't argue with your wife, but if you win a fight with your wife, what does that mean? You've made her lose, and if you've made her lose, that means you've wounded her. And so don't win a fight. And guys can be kind of competitive. Any guys in here competitive? No, I'm not either. So, let's seek to reconcile and communicate, not bury.
Great advice. I'm going to have to remember that.
All right. Verse 7. Light is sweet. How pleasant to see a new day dawning. When people live to be very old, let them rejoice in every day of life, but let them also remember there will be many dark days. Everything still to come is meaningless. Young people, he's speaking to you guys in here today. It's wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. Do everything you want to do. Take it all in, but remember that you must give an account to God for everything you do. Okay, get your pens ready, your mobile device, verse 10, chapter 11. So refuse to what? So refuse to worry and keep your body healthy. But remember that youth with a whole life before you is meaningless. Anybody kind of, does that verses make sense to us? Who was it that said keep your body healthy? Yep, that's Karen. Watch what you eat. Exercise. None of us like to do that. Erica always says that I would do anything to lose weight except diet and exercise. So, make wise choices when you're young because you have to live the consequences when you're older. Okay, chapter 12. Now, this is when things get really exciting. And we've got 27 minutes to get through it, and that's not even counting what my wife has prepared for tonight. Don't let the excitement of youth cause you to forget your Creator. Honor Him with your youth before you grow old and say, life is not pleasant anymore. Remember Him before the light of the sun. Remember Him before the light of the sun, moon, and stars is dim to your old eyes, and rain clouds continually darken your sky. What does that mean? Come on. Yeah, but what specifically when the sun, the moon, the rain clouds begin to dim in your eyes? Yeah, you're beginning to lose your sight. One of the greatest inventions of the 19th century? I don't know, it was probably before that. None of us wear glasses in here. He's talking about beginning to lose your eyesight. Remember him before the door to life's opportunity is closed and the sound of work fades. Now you rise at the first chirping of the birds, but then all their sounds will grow faint. What's he talking about? Beginning to lose your hearing a little bit.
And waking up with the chirping of the birds.
Does anybody wake up without an alarm clock in here? Does anybody wake up before they want to wake up and they can't stay asleep? Yeah. Yeah, not good. Okay. Remember him before you become fearful of falling and worry about danger in the streets. What's he talking about? So remember in the 80s there was this commercial on TV? What was it? Help, I'm falling and I can't. That was really funny back then. Now it's not so funny. So remember as you begin to lose your balance, as you begin to lose your strength, is what he's talking about. Before your hair turns white like an almond tree in bloom, and you drag along without energy like a dying grasshopper, and the caperberry no longer... Oh, we'll get to that one in a second. What's he talking about? Before... Not everybody's hair turns white, Kathy. Some of us get purple hair in older age. What's he talking about? Has anybody else had to deal with... My mom swore that she never colored her hair until she was 70, but when she died, Erica found 3 bottles of Clairol.
Way to throw me under the bus. You couldn't have just said they were found.
They were found by someone. But, you know, I used to call him my hair cutter, but Erica said that wasn't a professional name, so I have to call him my stylist. He gave me a bottle of rinse that he said would help with some of these white hairs. It doesn't help. Wear it proudly. I was very proud of it until I was in a video that was on Facebook today, and I noticed that there was a bald spot. And thankfully, I have an encouraging wife who said, "Honey, just remember what you've always said."
I'm like, listen, why? Why at 52 are you trying to look 20? Like, you have lived an additional 30 years. Who decided that 20 is the perfect look, that 20 is the perfect body, that 20 is the perfect hair? If you get to 52 and you still got all your hair, you're lying. You're just lying, and we're looking at you like you're a fool. You're lying, people.
Well, what she reminded me, though, is that I always say that it's not a bald head, it's a solar panel for a love machine. Yeah, that's why I like you, Frank. Frank called me distinguished.
But you skipped verse 3, Shane, when it says, the keepers of the house will tremble, but the strong men stoop. The grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the window grow dim. What does that mean? Your teeth. You know, my grandpa Hargrave was 92 when he passed away, and I said, "Grandpa, what's one thing..." Maybe he was 94. One of them was 90. I don't remember. But he said... I said, "Grandpa, what's one of the things you're most proud of?" And he said that I'll die with all my teeth. But you don't think about it. He grew up in southern hills of Illinois in a time where not everybody kept their teeth, right? I can still remember my granny when I was a little girl. She got all teary-eyed and she said, "Honey, you got your grandpa's beautiful teeth. You take care of those things. He had beautiful teeth, nicest teeth on the mountain, and you know, he's lost them now. You take care of those teeth."
Wisdom from our grandparents. Okay, let's see. And the dying grasshopper and the capeberry no longer inspires sexual desire. Let's just skip on from that.
Moving on.
Remember him before you near the grave, your everlasting home, when the mourners will weep at your funeral. Yes, remember your Creator now while you are young, before the silver cord of life snaps and the golden bowl is broken. Don't wait until the water jar is smashed at the spring and the pulley is broken at the well. For then the dust will return to the earth, and the spring will return to God who gave it. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Completely meaningless. What's he talking about there? Meaningless. If I was Italian, I wouldn't have to worry about it. He is talking about the aging process that all of us go through. And that there are things in life that we don't even consider. Do you remember? When we first got married, I was really proud of something, and when we got married, she was not impressed. I could literally, in my sleep, flip in the air and turn over. Like I could levitate off the bed, and she's like...
You haven't lived until you are sound asleep, and next to you, you both feel and hear, wha-thump, wha-thump.
It was an amazing giftedness. I was like, I'm an acrobat.
Look what I can do. I don't want to see anything at 2 a.m. but the back of my eyelids.
So... do you remember the first time you got out of bed and you hurt in the morning? Like the first time. Does anybody else remember the first time? I remember the very first time that I got out of bed and my knee creaked. You woke up your dog when you got up? I'm starting to feel that, Kathy. Kathy thinks that she said she woke up her dog when she got up because her knees creaked so loud. So maybe that's why God gives us worse hearing as we get older, so that we can't hear.
I remember being a kid, I could always tell who was going to the bathroom in the middle of the night because the way the floor creaked, and my dad was like the hunchback. You could hear, and I'm like, why doesn't he walk like a normal person? And then about 5 years ago, I find it. I'm getting up, I'm like, okay. Nothing's moving smoothly when you get up anymore.
So you have to understand, I grew up in a 150-year-old farmhouse. It was a big house, but we had no air or heat except for a wood-burning stove when we moved in. Erica grew up in an
old trolley depot. Yes, from the turn of the century.
It was 1,100 square feet. Or 1,200.
Oh, at most. 2 bedroom, 1 bath, old converted trolley depot. The big arch where the window was, where you get your tickets, they just extended a kitchen out. Mm-hmm.
And her bedroom was right near the bathroom. So, nobody's in it. And she and her sister had to share a room. And her dad told me that they took 2 buildings and put them together.
Yeah, it was the trolley depot, which was, just big enough to step into. And then they got another little lean-to building and put up against where the trolley depot window was so you could have a kitchen and a bathroom.
So those memories, right? What kind of home did you grow up in, and what did you think life was going to be about? Because we're talking about shattered expectations. And here's one of the hard things. Life seems to drift by, and we lose years without even realizing it. Someone once said that the days are long, but the years are short. And I think that's what Solomon is saying, right? What happens when you no longer have your strength? What happens when you no longer, a lot of us, men and women both, find our identity in our spouse, or we find our identity in our work. What happens when you finally get to that point where you can retire? What happens when you are unable to carry your 3-year-old because he likes hamburgers as much as you do? What happens when you begin to have more pain in your teeth or your eyes? I mean, I had LASIK when I was 46, 44, something. It was awesome. I didn't have to wear glasses anymore, but it didn't take long. Anybody else in here have to wear? Does anybody have perfect eyesight in here? Crystal. Boo. Some of us do have perfect hindsight. Erica doesn't get hysterical, she gets historical. That's not true, she doesn't. I do. When life begins to fall apart, and I remember, I'll never forget my grandpa Hargrave when he was about 82. I'd just gone through a breakup. I was suicidal for about 2 years. I begged God to take my life every day. I was 23, 24. My grandpa.
You had all your hair back then.
I did have my hair back then.
And life wasn't that peachy, was it? Get some perspective.
I knew that I needed Erica, but I didn't know who she was and that she was in 6th grade at the time. Not really. My grandpa had just lost my grandma of 49 years. And I was suicidal over a 3-year relationship that had ended, my first love. Had no clue what it would mean to have the kind of heartache he experienced. And I remember him saying to me, he said, "Son, someday you'll have less time in front of you than you have behind you. And then what do?" Solomon was writing about that kind of experience. But it's important that he doesn't just end there. He doesn't just say this is what happens when life begins to fall apart. George Burns was an expert when it came to humor on growing older, and he said things that you guys have all heard. You're getting older when you bend down to tie your shoe and think about what else you can do while you're down there. You're getting older when you're going up the stairs, but you have to take a rest, and then you can't remember if you were going up or coming down. You're getting older when the glint in your eye is your glasses from the sun. You're getting older when you walk the little old lady across the street only to realize it's your wife. It's not easy getting old. It's not for the faint of heart. And I wonder who it was who termed our retirement years our golden years. But is there more? Is there something that has value or that matters? We're about to find out. And I haven't even given my wife to speak yet, really. Remember your Creator now while you are young. Okay, we already got that part. We're in verse 9. Keep this in mind. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. He listened carefully to many proverbs, studying and classifying them. The teacher sought to find just the right words to express truths clearly. The words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. What a great illustration. If you grew up on a farm. Anybody else grew up on a farm? Anybody know what a cattle prod is? Has anybody's spouse, threatened you with one? Not really. It would be shocking if she did. Their collected sayings are like a nail-studded stick with which a shepherd drives the sheep. But my child, let me give you some further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless, and much study wears you out. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. This is what the whole book comes down to. This is the most important thing. That's what everything that he's leading up to is right here. That he wants the reader to grasp. That he wants you to imprint upon your hearts, for you to remember in the darkest of days, when you face the challenges of shattered expectations, this is what he wants you to take home. This is what matters in his experience about life. Are you ready? Here's now my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. I think one of the most shocking things as a counselor, a pastoral counselor, or as a minister is how many of us think that we have secret things that no one knows about, including God. Those secret things are painful. Those secret things that we hold on to that we don't want anyone to ever find out about keep us afraid. They keep us imprisoned. That's why the writers of the New Testament say confession is good for the heart. Jesus said that, I think, in Matthew. That's why Jesus came to free us from our shame and our guilt and our past. There are consequences in life. I don't know if you guys know this. When you get older, you'll figure this out. But there are decisions you will make in life that there will be consequences for, good or bad. And even though God redeems our story, it doesn't mean that we're always free from the consequences of our story. We make choices and our choices make us. But here's the great thing about the author, Solomon. That in the end, although every decision, every pleasure, every wonderful thing that life has, or every shattered expectation that comes our way, what we must remember is that nothing matters outside of the context of God in our life. And whether good or bad, whether we are suffering or my mom used to say, and my mom was so wise, but she used to say, son, this isn't the end of your story. This is just the end of a chapter. It's okay. The author is not done writing your story yet. And this is my encouragement to you tonight. It doesn't matter where you are in your life, how old you are, or how young you are. If you're here, it's because God has a purpose for you. And you're not meant to be set on a shelf. You don't get to retire from a person of faith. God has a story for you. He has a mission for you. And this church needs you. The kingdom of God needs you. The waitress at San Jose, whose life may be being destroyed by whatever, needs you. The checkout person, well, I guess that's actually you, but the checkout supervisor at Walmart may need a kind word or a smile from you because their life may be shattered. You have a purpose. Greg, I lost it. I was listening to my buddy Greg Laurie, and he told a story. No, Gene Apple. They're quite a pair. I heard a story. I heard a pear, apple, pear. Okay. Wearing Fruit of the Looms. Anything? Okay. I heard a story from Greg Laurie or Gene Apple, and he said it's important who we have as greeters. It's important how we love people. Because this week we may have a single dad with 2 kids who's just trying to keep his head above water, show up at church, fresh off a divorce, who doesn't know whether they believe in God or not. And someone who is like them greets them in the parking lot and says, hey, I'm glad you're here. And it's so important because we may have a single dad who shows up with 2 kids who's struggling with the pain of that divorce and the pain of the brokenness, who meets a greeter who maybe this person hasn't received a hug or an affirmation or your life matters in a long time, and somebody hugs them. It's so important that we remember that there are people coming through our doors this Easter season maybe who haven't been in church in a year, or maybe it's been several years because they're part of the C&E club, that Christmas and Easter. There was a preacher who one time said, hey, a guy walked out the door and he said, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. The Lord's army needs you. And he said, it's okay, I'm in the Secret Service. But people are going through real stuff. in life. It's important that we as a church are there to love them and welcome them and say, it's okay. We've been there. Some of you, the wisdom that you have from your loss, from your pain, Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 that God gives us compassion. But the God of all compassion and understanding allows us to face trials so that when others face trials that we can minister to them. Your experience matters. And there's going to be somebody there this weekend who maybe doesn't know what they believe, who doesn't know whether God cares about them or not. And the health and the hope of your shattered expectation can bring hope to their shattered life. I didn't say this part of the story on Sunday when I told kind of what Becky has been through and how she showed up in the nursery to hold a little baby. But there was a mom there that's just been coming. Actually, it's one of Crystal's best friends who has a little baby and didn't know anybody back there. And you know, when you go to someplace new and you trust your baby to someone, it can be terrifying. But I saw her smile when I told that story about Becky holding her baby all service long. It wasn't just Becky that was blessed by that baby. It was that mother who was blessed by Becky's sacrifice and her service. And every one of you have a gift to offer the Lord. And so whatever your shattered expectation is, He needs your story, because your mess will become your message when you've been healed through the power of Jesus Christ. And even if you're not well, let's just go back to the 12 steps. Is anybody, you don't have to raise your hand, but if you've ever been to a 12-step program, you know the first thing you say is, "Hi, my name is Shane." And you say, I don't know what else happens then. But here's the thing. No person in that AA meeting, that NA meeting, is healthy. They still are all battling that same addiction. But they're getting through it with the help of others and by a higher power, Jesus Christ. You may not be healthy. You may still be broken. You may have been freshly wounded in battle. It's okay. Your mess can become His message. And He needs you. Do you have anything to conclude, sweetheart?
One of the great reminders I always love is a guy who was he just kind of taken a hard swallow, decided to go to church one day, and when he got there, everybody had huddled in the back, like they'd packed out the back seats, and he wasn't about to try to find space for him. So he turns around to leave, and someone grabs him and is like, "Hey, you need a seat? I'll help you find a seat up there, and I'll walk up with you." And that guy ended up giving his life to Christ that night, and that guy was Billy Graham. You guys have probably heard that story. But it's amazing the little things that can go so easily unnoticed. And we've talked about this before, just as a church. We all kind of sit in the same seats. You know what your seat is. You know the people in your seat. Particularly this Easter Sunday, we used to call them section leaders, but could you just take it upon yourself to be your own personal section leader? You know where you sit. You know the people that sit next to you. Keep an eye out for those people who are coming in your zone. Like, who looks new? Who have you not seen before? Who needs a hug? And even if it's just you deciding, I'm just going to love on a couple of seats down and a couple of seats up because this is my seat area, and I'm going to take this as my own personal calling on Sunday mornings, that if you come into my bubble, I'm going to love you like you've never been loved before. I mean, that would go a long way just to let people know they're cared about. I'm off the hook because nobody's sitting in the front row. I'm good. You want a vacation? Come sit in the front row with me. Nobody comes to sit by me. But if you could just take ownership of that and say, you know what, on Sunday mornings, anybody comes into this bubble by where I sit, if you're close to me, I'm going to love you like you've never been loved before. We just have no idea what kind of difference that might make to people.
Yeah, there are a couple stories, two that I want to share with you about, and I'm going to get one of them wrong. But Tony looks for every new person she can find on Sunday mornings to say hi to. Kathy tracks down every person that she can find to give a hug to. But I can't see everybody on Sunday morning because my eyes are not great. I mean, and there was a Sunday, and everybody leaves so quickly. Now I'm kind of talking to people up front. But there was a Sunday that Becky and Frank weren't there. I didn't know what they were going through. Somebody in this class said, hey, I didn't see Becky and Frank on Sunday. Are they okay? So I called Becky, and it's then that I found out about all the stuff she was going through. We've got to take care of each other. We've got to love each other. And so if somebody is not here, man, let's find out why and let's track them down. So, but I can't do it all, and I am a horrible failure sometimes. So we need each other, and I need you, and I need my beautiful wife, who is my best friend and partner. So take a look around this room just real quick. Don't just blindly look at one place. Look at each and every person's face. That person is counting on you. The Lord is counting on you. Let's come together. In fact, I'm thinking about writing a song that says that. Let's come together right now. I don't know the rest of the words. Let's pray. Actually, I am going to pray. Does anybody, anything else, sweetheart? Would you tell somebody today that you're glad that they're here and that they matter? So, not yet. Don't talk in class. Yeah. Sure. Hold on, we're going to bring you a mic, even though you have an organ shirt on.
It's my granddaughter's shirt. She was a
Hey,
duck
I'm
for
not
a
here to
year.
judge.
Anyways, I started working at the thrift store the end of November, and then Nancy finally left me. I mean, not finally. I was sad to see her go, but she does come back to visit once in a while. But I had a person, I will just say a person the other day came in and bought some items, and that person thanked me for not being judgmental of what they bought. And then they came back later and bought something else. And I says, it's not my place to judge. He's going to be the judge. And this person said, yes, that is very true. So I just wanted to share that even though maybe not in church, but wherever you go in life, to just share your love.
100%. I was on an airplane, and this may surprise you that I talk to people. Erica puts her headphones in. She's an introvert. But I was talking to I've told this story in church, but I was talking to a 40-year-old woman who didn't know whether she believed in God or not, and a 19-year-old who never said a word. But in front of us was a 25-year-old girl who turned around and said, I've been listening. I want you to know I love your discussion. And she pointed at me. It was an African-American girl, but she pointed at me and she said, and I knew the minute that you walked on the plane that you were different because you smiled at me. So that's not kudos to Shane. That's saying the power of a look, the power of a smile, the welcoming mannerisms that we have make a difference. We are not an exclusive club that when people walk in, we're like, whoa, you're not welcome here. All are welcome. If somebody came from the world that didn't, Erica really made sense to me one time. She said, Shane, we can't expect people who are not believers to hold the same values that we hold because they don't even believe in God. And so when those people come in and are looking for hope or truth, let's welcome them in. And if we need to go sit next to them to say, hey, it's okay, none of us are perfect, and we're glad you're here, then let's do that. Okay, Erica, would you close us out tonight with prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much just for an opportunity to come together with other people who love you, and we just seek your direction in our life. God, give us a sense of meaning and purpose and direction and focus as we're coming into this Resurrection Sunday. God, help us to open our eyes and our hearts widely so that we can see what you're doing in us and through us and around us. God, thank you for allowing us to be part of your great calling and your great commission and your great army. And God, give us the strength and the wherewithal and the courage, but most of all, the vision to see where you're moving and how you're calling us to be a part of it. God, thank you for allowing us into this journey with you. In Christ's name, amen.